So today I'm going to talk about the case that we watched using Bowen theory to kind of conceptualize what's going on within this family. This is my genogram. Adrian and Judy are the parents, Pam the IP, and Christian is the son that passed away. Pam is the one that is receiving a lot of the anxiety. That's why she's the one exhibiting all of the symptoms and being asked to come to therapy. So, chronic anxiety within this family is very evident. We have Adrian, the father, who was an addict. He drank a lot in the past, so that is kind of like a symptom of the anxiety he's experienced. We're not really sure about his parents or Judy's parents, so we're not able to kind of see that pattern. But the anxiety of the son's death really took a toll on this family, and this family became very fused, very highly dependent on each other, very dependent on what each other thoughts are, expectations, and I'm going to talk about how that kind of plays out within the family. Pam receives a lot of the anxiety, as I talked about. The father is definitely kind of seen as like the overfunctioner. He kind of points fingers at the problem, which is Pam in his eyes, and kind of knows all. And the mother is kind of the underfunctioner. She kind of acts a little bit helpless, asks for advice, gives in. She's constantly like, what should I do with Pam? I'm overwhelmed. Is worried about Pam. So all of this anxiety of the loss of their son and the emotions and the intensity of that was put on Pam. Making sure Pam's okay, what's going on with Pam, and that kind of plays out within the system. Let's see. Family strengths, which are very evident within this system, obviously them coming to therapy shows their concern and their care for each other and how much they want to move forward. I think Pam mentions like, I want to be better. I want to be better person. So that's definitely a strength of this family. The substance abuse is a pattern within this family. Still not sure about the parents of Adrian or Judy and their substance abuse, but Adrian talks about his addiction to alcohol, which definitely plays out majorly with his anger and their past experiences with that. Emotional abuse is definitely evident within this family as a pattern. As I just said, Adrian expresses a bunch of anger, and we're starting to see that Pam definitely uses anger as something that she kind of copes with everything that's going on for her. She has a lot of anger outbursts, and that's kind of what pushed them into therapy. Parents-child relations, they obviously see Pam as like the rebel, the problem. There's definitely some stress between Pam and Mom and their relationship and what's going on there. And the father kind of seems to be Pam's more friend within the parenting roles. And Pam's mother definitely gets frustrated within that system. Pam is disabled, and she, because of her her mental disablement, she depends on her parents and is not able to live independently. So there's a lot of historical incidents, as I've kind of touched on already, that kind of contribute to the presenting problem of Pam kind of acting out, not listening, discipline issues with Pam. I think the anger in which the father Adrian has kind of used within the system creates a lot of anxiety within this family. Pam and her mother have had their issues in the past. Pam kind of, as it was said in the therapy session, Pam associates this disability kind of with her mother and all the doctors she had to go through to and that kind of thing. And of course, the suicide. I think the suicide is really the overarching big thing that's causing a lot of this anxiety and pushing this family and to creating more problems within that anxiety because they're experiencing this anxiety. And I think one of the books, in Gilbert's book, he talks about when there's anxiety, like you want to come closer together and be confused, but it actually just creates more problems. And that's where the triangle comes in, and this lack of differentiation in the family. Roles. I've kind of talked about this a little bit already, but I think Pam is definitely this rebel, trying to figure out what's going on, not wanting to listen. The father is definitely the controller of the family. I'll talk a little bit how that plays out, how that's evident. And the mother is definitely a little bit helpless. She's very quiet, very dependent on what her family thinks of her. And I've already talked about the under and over functioning, which I think plays very evident within Judy and Adrian. So the multi-generational transmissional process, unfortunately, this case did not provide a lot of background on the third generation back, and that is definitely touched on, was an issue because we're not able to see if these patterns have continued to play out and what relationships are like within their parents, within Judy and Adrian's parents. But I think guilt and shame are definitely something that is played out within this family. I think Judy and her husband feel guilty and a lot of shame on what happened to their son, and it's transmitted into Pam, and Pam feels a lot of guilt to stay with her parents. She doesn't branch out. She doesn't socially interact very much. And everybody is very enmeshed. Everybody's very dependent on each other, on what each other's feeling. But they do touch on nobody really talks about what's going on for them. So they're not really mature, like emotionally mature enough to kind of express this in an appropriate way with each other. And that leads me into the lack of differentiation within this family. This family is very evidently not differentiated. Pam, as I said, I think I would definitely think about her as using groupthink, like whatever her parents say that she is, she kind of just goes along with it. Yeah, that's who I am. It doesn't have a lot of autonomy. I think, her disabledness plays into that, but also she just feels this extreme guilt to be that child for her parents, that they already lost one. Like she has to stay with them to make sure they're okay. It's a lot of pressure put on Pam. Judy's fused with her family, like seeks affirmation from them to make sure they're okay. She doesn't even like her job, but she wants to, she does it because she has to support her family and make sure that they're okay. So both of them are very reactive to what's going on within their family. And we can see that Adrian is also reactive, and it shows his lack of differentiation. I think they talk about this within the case study is he coughs. And you can see that that's kind of like a symptom of the anxiety, possibly, of what's going on. There's all this trauma, all of these issues that have happened in the past, and him coughing kind of shows his uncomfortableness. As we talk about differentiation, the more differentiated, the healthier you are, they talk about that a little bit. Adrian worries about his family. He blames. He's not able to separate himself from the family. A lot of dependency in this family. Not a lot of autonomy. They all give a lot of themselves in this family. Not a lot of talk about them doing independent things for themselves. And I think that's part of them being not differentiated. And then obviously the son. The son is highly reactive. I'm trying to think, like, there might be a reason why he committed suicide, with being very reactive. What was going on in his family emotionally, just too much. Could be a piece of him being depressed and eventually going through with killing himself. So I think that shows his lack of differentiation also. We're not sure though. I'm just speculating due to lack of information. Emotional triangles. Adrian is triangulated between mom and Pam. Pam and mom have all this stress in their relationship, expectations, and they kind of bring Adrian on to like relieve some of that anxiety of what's going on for them. Pam just worries so much about, I mean, Pam's mom worries so much about her, and Pam just feels all this stress, and she brings Adrian in to kind of relieve some of that stress within their triangle. Family projection process. I kind of touched on this a lot. Just focus on Pam. There's a lot of worry on Pam. There's a lot of concern about Pam. And it's just all this anxiety is being put on Pam, and that's why she's reacting. She's being rebellious, and it's causing issues. It's backfiring onto the family. Emotional cutoff. So we don't know if there's any cutoff in relationships within this family. They don't really talk about somebody they don't really talk to anymore, but they do talk about this being a closed system, and meaning that they don't talk about what's going on for them. I feel like it's part of the differentiation process, but they don't really know how to talk to each other. There's just so much anxiety. They just kind of emotionally bottle it up and deal with it within, and it's just not healthy, not differentiated enough. The anger also, I like to think of the anger as like a surface emotion. They don't not mature enough to deal with the emotions, so they let it out through anger. The last piece is sibling position. I think this goes back to what Pam means to this family. All this anxiety is going to Pam. I think that's also another triangle between the husband and wife on what happened to their son, and then all this anxiety of what happened to their son. They triangulate Pam into relieving some of that anxiety of making sure she's okay and what's going on for Pam. Pam definitely demonstrates a lot of the only child, even though she isn't an only child. She definitely demonstrates a lot of the only child being very spoiled. It was actually interesting. One of the things that they said was one of the patterns they mentioned in the Gilbert book was being attracted to being friends with older people. She talks about this grandmother figure she has. So because she's now the only child, she takes on that role, looking for approval, making sure her parents are okay. She does rebel, but she wants to make sure her parents are okay. And I think that's why she goes to therapy, because she knows she needs to fix this. And I think the adoption also comes into a role of wanting to fit in within this role and what that means for her. I think that has covered everything on how I would conceptualize this case within Bowen theory.